Depending on your perspective, it's either the Mike McCarthy firing revenge game or the Kyler Murray Thursday night Russell Douglas interception revenge game. We're trying our best to sell Packers Cardinals a crossover Thursday next.
You are Locked On NFL Crossover, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Welcome inside another crossover Thursday. Locked On Packers, Locked On Cardinals. I'm Peter Bukowski, the host of Locked On Packers, joined by my pal Alex Clancy, the host of Locked On Cardinals. I'm sure it is a beautiful day there, Alex. I don't need to hear about it. But I do want to talk to you about this Arizona Cardinals team because going back to last year, and you and I have talked about this on and off air, I cannot figure this team out. I couldn't figure them out last year. I can't figure them out this year. There are parts of this team that I really like and parts of this team that I don't understand why they did it the way that they did it. But what is to you right now the biggest story around this Cardinals team?
Kyler Murray. I mean, I think that at this point in his career with this regime, second year, first full year with Drew Petzing, offensive line's better than ever, even though the right side of the offensive line is hurt out for the year with Will Hernandez and Jonah Williams. They've got all the pieces. They got James Conner, they got Marvin Harrison Jr., they got Trey McBride. They've got an embarrassment of riches, and it starts and stops with him, especially with where the defense is. I've said this entire offseason and through this season, the best defense the Cardinals have in 2024 is their offense staying on the field. And we've seen spots where the defense has blanked really good teams, the Lions and 49ers in the second half of two of the last three games. But it starts and ends with him. You and I have talked about him a lot. Yep. It's the highs are higher than most quarterbacks that we've seen in a while, and the lows are unbelievably indescribable as to why.
Well, and in a lot of ways, like those go hand in hand, right? Like when you're a quarterback who is capable of making, we're experiencing this in Green Bay right now with Jordan Love, because it's like, we know what you're capable of, dude. Like we know if you could just not do the mind-numbingly stupid thing once or twice a game, look, this, the sky's the limit. And I feel like, with Kyler Murray, so you're Marvin Harrison Jr. working his way into this. Now, how do they fit with Trey McBride? Like there's an adjustment period here for this offense, but it's almost unfair that they came out of the gates firing the way that they did offensively.
Yeah. And the thing with Kyler Murray, and this is something that as people who are getting into our late 30s, early 40s, like I feel like it's a collective here where it's like elite quarterbacks are game managers who make great plays when teams need them to.
Totally.
It doesn't need to be flashy. Sometimes it's packaged that way, but Tom Brady was not flashy. Peyton Manning was not flashy. Drew Brees was not flashy, even though he was the flashiest of the three. It's like Kyler Murray's floor just needs to be higher than it's been. And the amazing things, and I think that a lot of that is culture, a lot of that is scheme, and a lot of that is, him just maturing in an NFL level. And Jordan Love, like Matt LaFleur, is probably the most underrated coach we've seen in the last 10 years. I mean, I think one of them, especially with the Aaron Rodgers experience, I don't know how you feel. I don't know what the Lambeau Leapers over there feel, but I mean, from afar, all he does is win football games. And I think it just takes Jordan Love maybe another year to get to that absolute next level that people wanted him to see this year. And I mean, both quarterbacks have special in them for sure.
This is a team that I was looking at some of the numbers and I was trying to find, my thing is I'm big into some of the numbers, but I always want to find, okay, what are the data points that may be saying this is unsustainable, that this is not working as consistently as maybe you'd want it to be. And I'm looking at the offensive numbers and it's like, okay, top 15 in success rate, top 10 in EPA per play, top 10 in, like all the good numbers, they've got it. Like offensively, this is already a really good football team. And it seems like even with some of those offensive line questions, that they have the talent at the skill positions and the quarterback, plus Drew Petzing. And you talk about underrated. I think someone whose name maybe the casual football fan doesn't know, but they've been doing some really cool things going back to last year, second half, where I feel like on almost anyone, this team is going to be able to move the ball and score points.
Yeah, for sure. And I think the balancing act of there being so many bad offenses in the NFL with the Cardinals like sprouting, it maybe makes it look a little better than it is by the numbers. But Kyler Murray, I think he's top 5 or top 6 in QBR. Like everything's working. The issue that the Cardinals are facing that I think is the issue for Drew Petzing. He's got a tough job. It's like, okay, do you run the ball more? to bleed clock so the defense doesn't have to be on the field? Or do you let it rip and have some Cliff Kingsbury 3 and outs where it's 32 seconds? The defense just gave up a touchdown and you got to throw them back on the field? They're not ready for that yet. So I think it's a balancing act that is a little bit more introspective that, the national media won't look at. It's like the dude's got to figure out how to keep that defense in the best situation to succeed. And that's by sitting their keisters on the bench more than 30 minutes a game, and where the Cardinals haven't been able to do it. They haven't been on the field for over 30 minutes. I think in the last 3 or 4 games.
Yeah, just to drive home this point, Kyler Murray 8th in EPA per play this year, but also 8th in success rate. So we're talking about a guy who is keeping the offense on track while also getting the explosives. And we saw Marvin Harrison Jr. It seems like whenever they want, they can get an explosive to Marvin Harrison Jr. He just walked onto the field, that guy. Let's dig into this defense a little bit though, Alex, because it's not good. It's like all the numbers I mentioned about the offense, turn them on their heads, and that's the defense. This is kind of the version of the defense we thought we were going to get last year and didn't quite get. So what is not working right now for them?
Talent. I lose it. Well, BJ Ojulari, second-round pick from last year at LSU, towards ACL in camp. Darius Robinson, their late first-round pick. Yep. The practice window was just opened up from IR. He was at practice yesterday. He was just doing drills on the sideline, so in stretching. So I don't think he's going to play on Sunday. We don't know yet. We'll know more on Friday, but I think it would be kind of a rush to get him back. This is kind of a not yet defense. Like, they've got no pass rush. Okay, so that's there. Okay, Bilal Nichols, Justin Jones, they're 2 interior defensive lineman signings this offseason, both hurt. The corners, Max Melton, who they drafted, is starting to get more touches. Sean Murphy-Bunting is showing people who he is and why he's on his 3rd team since 2019. Does bring some veteran leadership, though. Kazir White, Mac Wilson in the middle of the field are the unsung heroes here. Mac Wilson was one of the best signings from the offseason. And then Garrett Williams, who missed last week, corner out of Syracuse up in your neck of the woods.
Yeah.
Only fell to the 3rd round because he tore his ACL around Christmas time.
Yeah.
That dude is going to be their
really good player.
one. He's showing flashes, and he's going to be back on Sunday. So we're seeing that young corners aren't being given the opportunity to succeed because the pass rush isn't there. And I think with that, though, 3 turnovers last week against San Francisco. They blanked Detroit in the second half. The Cardinals only put up 3 points. They lost 20-13. They blanked the 49ers in the second half last week. So it's like the highs are really high and the lows are really low, and they haven't found that middle ground yet. I don't think they will. Like, every week's going to be a different chapter in this story, and it's a different book every time. We have no idea what the hell is going to happen. So, yeah, I mean, the numbers are bad. And the bend don't break mentality for this team, that's like, okay, between the 20s, eat up, crunch down in around the red zone. And they've done better than people expected, even though the Washington game's kind of an outlier. That was Cliff Kingsbury's Super Bowl, let's be honest. Plus, the Cardinals aren't the only team that the Washington Commanders have done that to. So it makes me feel a little bit better about that.
No, it's true. Jaden Daniels has done that to basically everyone right now. and it does seem like, is there, look, I don't want to fall too far down this rabbit hole, but is there any Cardinals fan envy of like, why couldn't he do that for Kyler in Arizona?
No, I think that Cliff is, and you know how I feel about him as a head coach. He's a very, very smart offensive mind. So if that was his only job and he didn't actually have to lead men and he could just focus on Kyler Murray and just focus on the offense, I think we would have had potentially a different experience here. At least a more favorable one. But yeah, no, kudos to him. It's great. Let's just see if it's sustained. He starts really well, 7-0. I mean, week 8 in Arizona on Thursday Night Football, the Rasul Douglas game. That's where everything kind of changed. So we'll see what happens if it's sustainable the rest of the year.
I mean, truly the whole trajectory of his career changed in that game, and it's kind of crazy to see. We're going to flip this around. Talk a little Packers when we get back here on a crossover Thursday. Locked on Packers, Locked on Cardinals. Today's crossover Thursday brought to you by our friends at ZBiotics. I don't know about you. I'm getting a little bit older, as Alex mentioned, and that makes it harder to feel good the next day after I have a couple drinks. So every time I have pre-alcohol before drinks, there's a difference. You notice a difference when you can plan, say, okay, I know I'm going to have a couple glasses of wine tonight, or I'm going out with some friends. Plan for it. ZBiotics can get you there. When you drink, alcohol gets converted into a toxic byproduct in the gut. It's that byproduct, not dehydration, that is to blame for you feeling rough the next day. So take ZBiotics, make that your first drink of the night. Drink responsibly, of course, and you'll feel your best in the morning. So take your pre-alcohol, make that your first drink, then pace yourself, hydrate, do the important stuff too, and you will wake up feeling refreshed and ready to take on the day. Go to zbiotics.com/lockedonnfl to learn more and get 15% off your first order when you use LockedOnNFL at checkout. ZBiotics is backed with a 100% money-back guarantee, so if you're unsatisfied for any reason, they'll refund your money, no questions asked. Remember to head to zbiotics.com/lockedonnfl to use the code LockedOnNFL at checkout for 15% off. Today's episode also brought to you by our friends at Game Time. Game Time has a new feature that is going to change the way that you buy tickets. It's called Game Time Picks. And it makes getting tickets for your favorite live events even easier because Game Time Picks filters out the fluff to show you only the incredible deals on great seats so you don't have to waste time searching through thousands of tickets. That is one of the most annoying part of going to buy tickets is you're like, okay, how many of these am I going to look at before I find the perfect one? Well, Game Time Picks curates it for you to make it faster and easier and to save you even more money. Plus, you can see a panoramic view from your seat in the app before you buy. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms do apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off. Download Game Time today. What time is it? Game time. Back here on a crossover Thursday, Locked on Packers, Locked on Cardinals. Alex Clancy, Peter Bukowski here. And by the way, ZBiotics before tailgating at Lambeau seems like a really smart idea, a really smart thing to do. So you actually feel good the next day. Alex, let's get into it on this Packers team. I would assume also a team that has been hard to figure out from the outside.
Yeah. So let's start with the offense, obviously. Who is the no doubt about it guy on a 3rd and medium that Jordan Love targets? It seems like it's addition by subtraction is necessary in some capacity with all the options he has. Tucker Kraft now in the mold as well.
Yeah, I think so. Here's the problem with that question. Is whoever they feel like they can exploit on that play, in that matchup, in that game. It is so matchup dependent and it is so game plan specific. Like you go back and you look at the Cowboys playoff game last year. It was Romeo Doubs getting a ton of targets. That was against type for them in the second half of last season. And they did it because, okay, the Cowboys know on this concept, Romeo Doubs is going to run a deep over. Okay, so they had him run a deep over and return. So all of a sudden it's a double move and they're playing against tendencies. It is so matchup dependent and so game plan driven. So let me answer it by saying Jayden Reed is my default response because he has become the wide receiver 1 on this team in a lot of ways. Their schemed up stuff is for him, but on 3rd down, right now it's Dontavian Wicks. And he's the guy. I mean, on 3rd and 10 against the Rams, they tried to put the Rams away with a double move go ball to Dontavian Wicks that if he doesn't misplay by, 5%, it's game blouses. You know what I mean? And so, and then the secondary answer you mentioned, Tucker Kraft, is they're going to try and hit their shots. They're throwing the ball as deep as any team in the league right now. I mean, I think Jordan Love's average depth of target is over 10 yards. But they are more than willing to say, here, Tucker Kraft on a check down after 2 yards, you can go make a play. I mean, it seems like once a game, he sheds a tackler at the line of scrimmage or behind the line of scrimmage or a yard in front of the line of scrimmage. And all of a sudden he's 15 yards down the field. And you're just like, how did they do that? How did he do that? And I'm looking at, you mentioned that the unsung heroes of this defense. I'm looking at these linebackers going, okay, Kaiser White, Mack Wilson, they can run, but they're small. So how are they going to tackle big backs like Josh Jacobs, big boys like Tucker Kraft, Jayden Reed in open space? That's to me is one of those interesting matchups.
Yeah, the fascinating part about the run game I'll get to in a second is what they did against Tennessee when everybody knew what they were going to do and they were able to do it. It just blew my mind. I want to touch that on a second. So Matt LaFleur, play caller, Jordan Love, younger quarterback, even though, what is he, 26?
Yeah, I think 26.
Yeah, because I mean, he sat on the bench for a couple of years. How much creative control does Jordan Love have?
By the way, 25 until November, Jordan Love. He creative control after the play, a lot. And what's really cool about it is, people accuse me of certain things with Aaron Rodgers and my anti-Aaron Rodgers biases and all these things. And, maybe some of it fair. But one of the really cool things that Matt LaFleur did with Aaron Rodgers was he took some of the core concepts that he likes, Rodgers likes, and Matt LaFleur likes, and said, here's actually what we're going to do. We're going to have a quick game concept to the left. And then we're going to have, just based on timing, we're going to have a slower developing concept on the right. And we're going to have you read full field left to right, because Aaron Rodgers, big brain guy, we all know, does his own research. He can make those full field reads. So they said, okay, Jordan, same deal. We're going to ask you to do it. So here's a little slant flat over here. You don't like it? Come back. It's dagger. It's Yankee. It's some like they will pair these concepts, and that allows him to go 1, 2, 3 or 1, 2. No, he'll take 2 more steps and reset and try and make a throw. And that's it's unique in the league. There's just not a lot of quarterbacks who are given the freedom to do that at the line of scrimmage. Can he do what Aaron Rodgers did and say, I can call any play I want at the line of scrimmage? No, probably not. And Matt LaFleur is probably really happy about that, because it did hurt the sequencing for the Packers when that was the MO, because it's like, no, I called this because maybe in 3 plays or in 3 quarters, I'm going to get to this other thing off that, whether that play works or not. And so he is someone who post snap can be super creative, but pre-snap, it's 1 play or it's 2 plays, maybe a little hand signal here and there.
Yeah.
But we've seen the playmaking, the creativity. He's got, not quite Kyler Murray level of playmaking with his legs, but as a thrower to get to those secondary looks, he's really good at that.
Yeah, and he can make all the throws. But the thing that the reason why I asked is, like, that's a double-edged sword, naturally.
Yeah.
Where it's like, if it's more regimented, it's like, okay, here's this, here, whatever. And obviously every quarterback has some sort of, oh, bleep, we're in the gray, I got to go kind of thing. I know that, like, that's obvious, but it's like he makes mistakes and he's forced into mistakes.
Yeah.
And he makes some of the most incredible plays that I've seen. He does it with such, like, je ne sais quoi. He does it with, like, such ease and fluidity. And then he throws the same ball and it hits the chest plate of a linebacker. And it's like, what are we doing here, guys? So that's why I was curious, like, how much control he had. Now, Josh Jacobs, he had one really good year in Vegas, actually. He signed the deal here. They've got Emmanuel Wilson. Has the run game been a success so far, or has it done its job in an effort to unlock the pass game?
Well, I mean, you mentioned the Colts and the Titans games when that's all they could do was run the ball, and they ran it all over Indianapolis. And you can say, okay, the Colts have one of the worst run defenses in the league. Okay, has anyone else done to the Colts what the Packers did? No. Yeah. What I think they're struggling with right now, Alex, is how do you marry the cool stuff that they did with Malik Willis with Jordan Love? Because a lot of that is like old school single wing, crazy, like high school football stuff.
Yeah, like armed forces offenses.
Right. Oh, 100%. And that's why it was cool to see. But it's like, okay, if those are your cool plays now, would you have the play off the play? And this Packers team was so good last year under center run game, under center play action, like staple concepts, duo, inside zone, outside zone. Can you get to some of those runs from under center? Well, Jordan Love last week, at least, didn't play a ton of under center. How much of that is the knee? I asked him about it. He said, that was really more a calculation for Minnesota. Like, that wasn't really a thing here. I don't know if I buy that, but that's what he said. And so the run game, I think, could be better, but I think having a fully mobile Jordan Love will make it better, because so much of what they want to get to under center is that play action game where it's one of those weird things where the Packers, and I think this is true for the 49ers and some other teams, their play action game actually makes their run game better, because the linebackers are never quite sure.
Right. This
looks like run, but I have to hold for that split second, because if this is play action, they're throwing it in behind me if I take too many steps up. So there's that little extra hesitation. It's funny how that works, because it's supposed to be the other way around, right? Like the run game is supposed to lead you to the play action, but when you're a really good play action team, it can create that doubt. And so we just haven't seen the healthy Jordan Love. They did a little in week 1. They were in the gun a lot week 1 too. So it might just be the next evolution of this offense. I think that balance is there. You mentioned Matt LaFleur, the underrated, like he's going to find that rhythm and that balance. I think it's going to take Jordan Love healthy though for them to get to that place. I'm wondering, Alex, like for this team, if you're the Packers, like what personnel grouping are you trying to get them in? Do you want as many of those DBs on the field at once as you can get, spread them out and try and run the ball? Or is this like hey, let's get in 12 personnel with 2 tight ends on the field and try and create that way?
The Cardinals personnel? Yeah. I mean, they can do both. And that's the fascinating part. And it's something where, drafting Tip Raymond out of Illinois, they've got a blocking tight end. They've got,
for the Packers, like if I'm the Packers and I'm trying to exploit this defense, what personnel grouping do you think is most exploitable? Like, do you want them in heavy personnel or do you want them in nickel with all those DBs on the field?
I think you'd want them in nickel because of the lack of pass rush. I mean, yeah. I think that's really what it comes down to. And I think that's the weakness of the Cardinals right now. And that's, what they've got to deal with, and how they can overcome it is keeping the offense on the field. Now, one quick thing before we pivot, I know we're going a little late here. Defensively, the Packers haven't faced a mobile quarterback outside of Jalen Hurts in week 1 in Brazil. Like, let's throw that away. What's the best course of action for them to contain Kyler Murray with the skill position players they have on defense?
Yeah, I mean, they did play Anthony Richardson week 2, but
that's right.
So their plan has been contain rush. Don't let him break the pocket. But here's the other thing that I'll add, and I actually don't think it's out of line to not add Anthony Richardson, because the Colts, at least early in the season, were trying not to get their quarterback killed, so they weren't calling anything run-wise for him. The same thing is true to a degree in Philly. Like the Packers really contained that quarterback run game when the Eagles tried to go to it. Now the Eagles get to a quarterback run game very differently than the Cardinals do. They treat Jalen Hurts like a fullback at times, like, hey, we're going to run QB power. The Cardinals are not really doing that with Kyler Murray. So then it's really all about the contain part of this. And this is why I think you're going to see someone like Edgerrin Cooper in this game spy, because he's the only linebacker that the Packers have that can run with Kyler Murray. I mean, this is a guy who last week, I believe the 43-yard line, held his finger up in the air knowing he was going to score. I've never seen it in my life. I loved it so much. I was just like, oh my, like, let us all bow down to a short king on this one, because that was incredible stuff from Kyler Murray. And Edgerrin Cooper is the kind of player, we saw him, and I brought this up, Locked On Packers listeners are going to go, I can't believe he's going to mention the Alabama game again, but I'm going to mention the Alabama game again, because anyone who watches Saturday football, watch Jalen Milroe. He is an unbelievable runner, and Edgerrin Cooper chased him down in the backfield multiple times because he's just that explosive of a linebacker. And I think those are the kinds of players. I wouldn't be surprised if we saw a lot of big nickel in this game with Evan Williams and Javon Bullard on the field at the same time with Xavier McKinney, because number one, you got to cover Trey McBride. Someone's got to do that. And you have to be able to have these underneath defenders who can run. Like if Eric Wilson's on the field, the Packers are in trouble. And so I think that he just has to be out of the rotation, unfortunately for him. And you have to try and, if the Cardinals are going to play big people and you're going to go heavy personnel, you have to find a way to match that if you can. But we'll see if that is in fact how they want to do it. Let's do keys to victory. Let's figure out who's going to win this game and why. We'll do that next on a crossover Thursday. Locked on Packers, Locked on Cardinals. Today's crossover Thursday brought to you by our friends at FanDuel. This line opened Packers -5. It's now Packers -5.5. As we record this, interesting that's creeping up, because look, this Cardinals team, they're coming off some impressive play. They played these teams close, these good teams close. So I don't know, 5.5. It's creeping up there. And right now, America's #1 sportsbook, by the way, that's FanDuel. They want to give you a big return. So when you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. You'll get started with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place your first $5 bet. Come on. You don't even have to win the bet. You just place it and you can get those dollars. Go to FanDuel.com to get started. All right, we're back here, Locked on Packers, Locked on Cardinals. Alex, I mentioned that 5.5. When I say that, what do you react to with the line here? 5.5. Does that seem fair?
Yeah. fair and unfair. We don't know what Cardinals team is going to show up. I mean, if you tell me the Cardinals win outright, I'd be like, okay. If you tell me the Cardinals lose by 20, I'd be like, okay. I mean, we don't know enough yet at this point, even though it's been through 5 weeks, which is frustrating and exciting at the same time, I guess.
Yeah, 5.5. Like, it's weird that 5 and 5.5 seems so different to me. Not to get like super into the betting part of this, but like 5, I go, okay, I feel comfortable with the Packers. 5.5, all of a sudden, I'm like, like, are we undervaluing the Cardinals here? Like, I do kind of feel that way because you mentioned, like we just saw them. Like, did we forget what happened last week? Yeah. Like, the Cardinals beat a good. I know the 49ers are 2-3, but like, come on, we know what the talent is on that team. It does seem a little weird to me that we're just going to hand wave that, like, on the road. They went to Santa Clara and did that to the 49ers. Like, does that not count?
Yeah. And they were down 23-10 at halftime and brought it all the way back, turned them over 3 times. But yeah, TBD, I would just stay away from this game. Like, personally, I'm too nervous.
From a gambling standpoint. Yeah.
I have no idea. There's no way of grasping what's going to happen, which is the weirdest thing going into week 6.
Yeah. I'm just looking. I have the second half play-by-play here from 49ers Cardinals here. And you know this, but for my audience, here are the second half drive chart for the San Francisco 49ers. Interception, downs, fumble, interception. That's it. That's the whole drive chart from the second half. That's bad. That's really bad offense. And you can tell me how much you thought that was good defense versus really bad offense. But, if the Packers don't turn the ball over, I think this is when it gets really tough. Like, I think, to me, that is the key here. If the Packers don't turn the ball over, I think they win. And I know that seems overly reductive. The team that holds the ball usually wins, but that's where I am with this, because I don't think this defense is going to be able to get enough stops if the Packers don't turn the ball over. Yeah, I mean, that's something that the Cardinals defense backloaded last week, 3 turnovers. It's more of the exception than the rule. I think that's something the Cardinals definitely need to focus on, because Jordan Love can throw 1 or 2 balls that can be intercepted, irrespective of the talent in the secondary. The Cardinals need to be opportunistic in an effort to turn over this high-powered at times offense. So I 100% agree. If you're gonna paint the roadmap here, is that the number one thing you're looking at, or what is the thing where you're like, okay, if they're gonna win, they need to do this? Kyler Murray needs to be special every week. Like this, there's no days off anymore. And it could be special in very different ways. It could be special in checking out and throwing a back shoulder fade to Marvin Harrison Jr. with a favorable matchup on 3rd and medium. It could be checking into a run in a light box where the Cardinals have been throwing all over Green Bay for a quarter, and they're able to get James Conner for a chunk run when necessary. Like, obviously, these are all circumstantial and hypothetical, but Kyler Murray needs to have a floor that's higher than what it's been for a couple of the games so far this year. Remove the Rams game. That's the exception of the rule. Remove the Washington game. They cancel each other out. Now Kyler Murray needs to play at an elite level. It doesn't need to be numbers-wise. It needs to be pick your spots to take shots and be special. And that it starts and ends with that, because you can overcome defensive deficiencies if your quarterback is playing at an elite level, and running the ball is the other thing. Get Kyler Murray out in space again. You mentioned it. That's how, like, containing a running quarterback, containing a movable quarterback. Kyler Murray needs to circumvent that, and he's been able to do it, throughout his career. They need to make a focal point of picking their spots, calling design runs for him, whether it be RPO or just quarterback off tackle, which is kind of what we saw last week, in an effort to keep opposing defenses on their heels. Once a game, that's all you need. We saw it in the first drive last week, and the defense was on their heels the rest of the game. Doesn't need to be often, just needs to be choice spots once or twice throughout the game. Yeah, and I think the way that modern defenses have evolved is we're seeing everybody live in this world where people are trying to play too high to keep a lid on everything, no big plays. And if you have a quarterback who can beat you with his legs, it is just such an advantage. Like, what is the list of quarterbacks who could score a 50-yard touchdown? It's like Jaden Daniels, Lamar Jackson, Kyler Murray. Am I missing someone? Like, I don't think Jalen Hurts is fast enough probably to do it. Josh Allen's not fast enough. Like, no, I think it's – and especially in that space where you're faster than the safety, you're faster than the backer, and you're gone. Like we saw last week, he's so sneaky fast because people make fun of how he runs. He runs, like somebody in fast forward. It's like, I got little legs. Who cares? He runs like my toddler when I'm like, hey, what toy did you just grab of your sister's? That's exactly how he runs.
Yeah. And you know what? You'll take it. You'll take it if he gets to his spots the way he does. And the one thing the Cardinals need to also do is shatter Xavier McKinney's interception streak. Like, I think that this is something that incredible offseason signing, by the way. Just pulled him from the Giants. What are we doing here? In East Rutherford. Like, what is going on? Or not East Rutherford. In New York. They need to not turn the ball over. Kyler Murray's been good. He hasn't been great. He's turned the ball over a couple times. But lob balls in the middle of the field with a crossing route is something that he's had a proclivity to do over his career. That is something that the Cardinals cannot do because they need to keep the defense in best positions possible.
This is if Kyler Murray plays a smart game, the Cardinals have a chance to win. Like, that is it. Like, if he can just keep them on schedule and not press. And I've been saying the same thing that you have about this Packers. It's actually been the Packers run defense where I'm like, the best Packers run defense since Aaron Rodgers, was patrolling the sidelines is the offense. Don't let teams stay on schedule. And so I think this is the same thing for this version of the Packers. The best way to beat this Cardinals team is going to be to get a league and make them one-dimensional, because then it makes them so much easier to defend when you can't just like have everything in that playbook to your full disposal. Don't let James Conner get rolling, those kinds of things, because they'll just surgically move the ball down the field. Hey, Trey McBride here for 8. Hey, Marvin Harrison Jr. for 14, James Conner for 4. Oh, Kyler Murray, all of a sudden he got loose for 20 yards. Like, they're going to be able to do that. So you have to find a way to make them have to play left-handed. We'll see if they can do it. I'll be live after the game on Sunday. We'll both be back tomorrow here, but thanks for being a part of a Locked On Packers, Locked On Cardinals crossover Thursday, and we'll talk to all of you very, very soon.